I found out my wife was cheating on me 2 times in 5 years. I decided to divorce her. Now I'm happily with someone else while she's struggling with her failed app and living in a house she can't pay for. I found hope after leaving my cheating partner. I haven't shared my whole story here before, but I hope it helps someone else going through a tough time. My wife cheated on me twice in 5 years, and even though we tried to make it work after the first time, she fell back into her old habits. She even flew a man she met online to a conference, which I found out about right away. She said she wanted to stay together, but she wasn't willing to work on our issues or go to counseling. It was a really tough time for me, but talking to friends and family made me realize I deserved better. One night, it hit me. I needed to ask for a divorce. Despite my fears, the split was surprisingly amicable. Ironically, our relationship was better towards the end because I stopped letting her control my happiness. In the end, I got to keep the house because she couldn't afford it. She found an apartment nearby. We agreed on everything in our divorce, so we were able to dissolve our marriage without a big fight. We share custody of our children equally. My advice to others in this situation is, if possible, opt for a dissolution rather than a contested divorce. Talk to a lawyer, but strive for an amicable agreement. Keep a lawyer in the background in case things get tough, but try not to let emotions drive you towards revenge. I started dating again and met someone I really like. She also went through a divorce due to infidelity years ago. With her, there's no secrecy or lies. We communicate openly and honestly, which is refreshing after the dishonesty in my marriage. My kids have adapted well to the new situation, contrary to my fears. I'm genuinely happy now. I prioritize myself, travel more, and spend time with friends. I've sought counseling to process the trauma of my past. It may seem bleak after an infidelity, but happiness is possible if you let go and take control of your life again. My ex is now back with her old affair partner. Who cares? It's not your life anymore. Your ex-partner is broken, likely beyond repair, and they're not going to change. You can't let their brokenness affect your happiness any longer. They can deal with their issues on their own time, and not at the expense of your emotions and heart. Happiness is waiting for you out there. It might not come immediately, but you can start by removing the dead weight dragging you down. Finding happiness in a broken relationship with a broken person is just temporary and will hold you back from true fulfillment. Take care of yourself. Friends, hope, and happiness are waiting for you. Update: sometimes I can't help but laugh at how similar these stories are. It's remarkable how predictable people's behaviors can be in these situations, particularly when the cheating starts with a texting relationship. The cheater always finds someone of the opposite sex, claiming they're just friends. The conversations follow the same pattern: innuendos, jokes, and eventually full-on flirting. Normal people would shut it down, but we're not dealing with normal here. Then oops, there's a picture of me semi-nude and later on, fully nude. But when you confront them, they brush it off, saying they're just a friend who understands them really well. Any suspicion is met with gaslighting. When I was dealing with my ex-wife's multiple affairs, which often started with texting, I had the audacity to ask her why she didn't just stop. It's frustrating to see how unoriginal and terrible at lying cheaters can be. It's been a year since my ex moved out, and I realized this community helped me see that my marriage was overdue to end due to her infidelity. TLDR. Wife cheated on me in 2017, then again in 2022. Our divorce was finalized, but we still share custody of our 2 children. Our relationship is fine, we communicate well and coordinate childcare without issues. We share 50-50 custody, and I do pay child support, but our relationship is cordial without being close friends. We live in Ohio while her affair partner from last time lived in Florida. Despite that distance, they continued their relationship, and he even left his child in Florida to buy a house with her, about 3 miles from where I live. They purchased the house in November 2023, but he lost his job in December of the same year, and he's still unemployed as of now. My ex can't afford the house on her own. She earns around $56,000 a year, and the house cost $45,000. They took out a loan for $365,000, but that's not my concern. It's amusing that our friends mostly sided with me and distanced themselves from her because I was straightforward about what happened. I've met her affair partner once. When we met, he avoided eye contact, but I boldly introduced myself and mentioned his name, acknowledging our indirect acquaintance through the pictures and texts he sent her. Since then, he's avoided looking at me, which I find amusing. As for my kids, they're doing great. They seem to have adjusted well to the split and enjoy their time with each parent. However, when his kid comes to visit, he stays in my daughter's room. She's 9 and he's 4. The first time he came up here, he was very scared and spent most of the night talking to my daughter. It's worth noting that he moved away in November and arrived in Ohio in December. Just 2 hours after landing, he found himself in a house he'd never been to, in a bed he'd never slept in, with a girl he'd never met, and was expected to be okay. In this situation, my daughter prefers staying at my house because she feels more comfortable falling asleep here. As for me, I'm doing great. I still live in our marital house because I could afford it, unlike my ex. She was eager to leave, which worked out well for me. I got an excellent deal on the equity buyout and kept almost all of our furniture and belongings. I met a wonderful person who's been a breath of fresh air. She's also been through a divorce due to infidelity, so she understands what I've been through and shares my values against cheating or polyamory. My kids adore her, and she's been a guiding light for me during a difficult time. Despite the challenges, I've negotiated child support to a reasonable amount and appreciate the freedom I have when I don't have the kids with me. I've been able to travel more this past year. I'm living more fully now than I ever have before. I've got plenty of vacations and getaways planned. My advice to you: seek therapy. It helped me immensely to navigate through feelings of guilt and self-blame after being cheated on. Even if you don't think you need it, give it a try. Move forward with your life, even if you still miss your ex. It's time to focus on yourself. Whether that means getting back into the dating scene or taking some time to be alone, do what feels right for you. Treat yourself to things that bring you joy, like that trip you've been dreaming of or a night out with friends. Don't cover for your ex, be honest with your friends about what happened. You're not responsible for their actions. Remember, cheating is a choice made by unhappy individuals. Find peace within yourself and your circumstances. Things will get better, but you have to allow yourself to move forward. Update: for those who've been betrayed, if you're seeking advice here, you might hear a lot of hire a lawyer or leave now recommendations, which could sound cliche and repetitive. Let me share something with you: you'll never get better terms on a divorce settlement than when your partner is caught up in the affair fog. They're convinced they've found their happily ever after and are eager to leave their marriage as quickly as possible. This often leads them to make foolish decisions just to end the relationship. Personally, I was able to negotiate a favorable settlement. I kept the house by persuading her to accept a lower valuation, saving around $35,000. Additionally, we each retained our own retirement funds instead of going through a costly process, which would have resulted in her receiving an extra $40,000. I also negotiated child support to be 30% below guidelines with no alimony. While it's a tough decision to make, taking the leap can bring excellent financial benefits. Look out for yourself, don't worry about them. Edited to add: if you're savvy and do your research, you can even convince them not to hire an attorney and handle the dissolution yourselves. As long as you agree on everything, there's no need for lawyers. This way, no one will point out that they're getting the short end of the stick. Now on to the next story. Wife used Bumble BFF to find her soulmate behind my back. After months of deception, I exposed their affair during a dinner with everyone present. Now she's pleading for me to take her back. My wife and I have been married for nearly 15 years. We were high school sweethearts and each other's first partners. Despite warnings from our parents about our young love, we became deeply committed to each other in high school. Ignoring the advice, we got jobs, moved in together right after graduation, and a year later, we tied the knot. In total, we've spent 20 years together. We did everything as a team. She was my best friend, and I believed she was my soulmate. We built a life together, had 2 kids, bought a house, and settled into a comfortable routine. I worked in construction and eventually took on a larger role in the company, allowing my wife to stay home and care for our family, a choice we were both content with. Despite our closeness, we had different social needs. While I was content with our solitude, my wife craved friendships and social outings. She enjoyed girls' nights out, sipping wine and gossiping with friends, something I didn't particularly crave due to my introverted nature. I knew she sometimes felt lonely, so I made extra effort to show her love, but I couldn't replace the companionship of close friends. One day, she saw a targeted ad for Bumble, which has a feature for making friends. She downloaded the app and told me about it, explaining she didn't want me to misinterpret it as cheating. We browsed profiles together, and she began messaging some people. Initially, it was just virtual friendships, but eventually she met up with a woman she clicked with. I met her when my wife invited her over for dinner, and they seemed to get along well. My wife wanted more friends, so she continued using the app to expand her social circle. I didn't pry into who she was talking to, as it seemed she only interacted with women. I didn't realize men also appeared on the app, albeit less frequently. She began talking to someone else regularly, and I assumed it was another woman. They met for coffee and ran errands together around town. We started drifting apart, and eventually our physical intimacy dwindled. That's when her affair transitioned from emotional to physical. There were weeks where it seemed she was meeting JN multiple times a week, and it became too much for me. I grew frustrated with her behavior, feeling like she wasn't being honest with me. So I checked her phone and found numerous messages between them, confessing their feelings and even admitting to physical intimacy. Initially, my wife resisted Jan's advances, reminding him she was married, but soon after, they both confessed their love for each other. Despite this, my wife didn't want a divorce, especially not until our kids were older. Jan agreed to wait, but I felt heartbroken and betrayed. I wanted revenge for their deceit, especially since my instincts about their relationship were proven right. My wife had made me feel guilty for doubting her, but now I was determined to confront them both. What I did about their affair didn't sit right with me. It seemed almost cruel that he would suggest we meet up, knowing my intentions to humiliate them. Despite my reservations, I agreed to go. We arranged for a babysitter and went to a nice restaurant. To my surprise, John brought a date with him. My wife hadn't mentioned anything about him seeing someone new, but given what I knew, I suspected it was a charade. The dinner started off smoothly, and everyone got acquainted. I refrained from drinking so I could remain clear-headed for what I had planned. As the meal progressed, I decided to make a toast. It caught everyone at the table off guard, as it wasn't typical for a casual gathering. I expressed how pleased I was that John had met my wife and how I knew she wouldn't be alone when I left her. John awkwardly chuckled, and then I turned to my wife and confronted her about knowing the truth. At that point, the atmosphere became tense, and even John's date seemed uncomfortable. Others in the restaurant were watching as I finished my toast. My wife was quietly pleading with me to stop, tugging on my arm for me to sit down. I could sense her embarrassment at my words. After everything was said and done, I left the dining room with my wife following closely behind. She scolded me for embarrassing her in front of everyone, but I reminded her of the humiliation I had endured. During our conversation, she admitted feeling unfulfilled in our relationship for some time. She expressed regret for marrying me right out of high school, saying she wished things had been different. Despite her words, I remained firm. I told her that her betrayal was unacceptable and divorce was the only option. I made it clear that I didn't care if she wanted to stay together for the sake of our children. I wanted to initiate divorce proceedings immediately. I believed it was better for our children to live in separate households than witness their parents' strained relationship. We went through with the divorce, and my wife didn't receive any concessions from me. We opted for joint custody of the kids, a decision I still believe was best for us. It became apparent that she was trying to shift blame onto me for breaking up the family. Initially, my kids were upset with me, but I couldn't stand the thought of them being missiled, so I set the record straight. Their attitudes changed once they knew the truth. Our youngest no longer wants to visit her, and I have to encourage them to maintain their relationship. About a year ago, my wife suggested reconciling for the sake of the kids. I saw through her intentions right away. It seemed she missed the stability of marriage and the traditional family dynamic. Perhaps she also struggled with the fact that her kids resented her for her actions. I made it clear that I had no interest in rekindling our relationship. She and John attempted to salvage their relationship post-divorce, but it quickly unraveled. I suspect their connection was fueled more by the excitement of a secret romance than genuine compatibility. Word about their affair spread throughout town, which likely hindered John's dating prospects as well.